So this post showed up that Bungie is hiring a gameplay analyst for Marathon. It's somewhat specific. Let's go ahead and look through it. I think it's going to open up, all kinds of thoughts in your mind. So for many of you that may or may not know, PlayStation is trying to open up the live service thing. They're coming full force with a bunch of titles that they've already planned out. We already saw Helldivers 2, Concord came and went. Fair Games is in development, and Marathon is also in development. This particular ad points out some specifics for what that job should have. This account here, Marathon Bulletin, basically sums it up and says must have a minimum of 200 plus hours in Escape from Tarkov or a similar title, The Division maybe. Actively play rank modes in Call of Duty Warzone, Apex, or Rainbow Six Siege. Interesting. So this is pretty much what they're asking for when it comes to the required skills. Clear nature of curiosity towards problems. You should quickly jump in and understand and solve the problem, figuring out why, how things. They're looking for a gamer. That's what they're looking for. Demonstrably strong critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Must have a minimum of 200 hours. Ability to capture video evidence of feedback during playtests and provide explanations with the video. Interesting stuff. They're gonna pay this person about $71,000 to $80,000. Man, I'm in the wrong profession. Goodness gracious. They want me to come out there and play a shooter for them and tell them exactly what my thoughts are about it. But I think all that in tongue in cheek, it basically is showing right now that PlayStation is quite serious about this whole venture. They really are taking into account what they want to do out here. And that is they want to bring out a live service game that will hit any way it happens. Can you imagine having to try a dozen times for you to be able to nail down one or two of these kinds of games, when the opportunity was always there for them to create libraries of single player titles like Nintendo has done for the longest time? You see, everybody says something about Nintendo and all of this, whatever it is. As much as I'll tell you, I fuss at Nintendo because of their lawsuits and all that stuff and the way they're behaving with Power World, the way they used to do with content creators. I don't know if you guys knew, there was a time on YouTube when Nintendo will take a cut out of your ad revenue if you made videos about their content. Oh yeah, they were like that. And then they found out everybody else was getting free publicity and few people wanted to talk about Nintendo anymore, and so they were like, you know what, we've changed our minds, blah 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 blah. But as much as I'll fuss at Nintendo, one of the reasons I feel like they continue to maintain a strong library is simply because they just invest in the kinds of games that they're used to. No chasing any fads, none of the above. All of this talk about even the Switch 2 and its power level, I always said, in my mind anyways, if they were to go ahead and chase a fad, they will just lose a lot of their audiences. Why? Because if they go build a more powerful handheld, everyone's going to want to come dump games over there. Nintendo doesn't need that. They need an ecosystem that is largely scarce with third-party, type influence. And right now, PlayStation, which already has third-party influence, what is their measure to separate themselves? And I feel like them doing third-party money hats is not enough. The industry has just changed. If, say, they had a library of games that continue to drop over time, they would have built an identity. As much as we talk about this identity stuff, and I've seen identity crisis happen, it's when you've created a pattern and all of a sudden you decide to deviate from that pattern. One of them, even though you may come out with a decent or a good game, it's going to be hard for fans to be able to adopt something as new as, say, maybe even Gotham Knights or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, especially when Rocksteady had already followed and designed a pattern of making specific games about Batman, superhero in terms of combat, and so on and so forth. So for them to go ahead and make a shooter, that really was weird. In the case of PlayStation, they're doing this now, and it's not really hitting overall. They have these studios in place that are doing stuff for them. They have Arrowhead, which is a third-party studio. Well, yeah, a third-party studio, but is working with them. But it is their game, Helldivers 2, that's been able to, make a game that clicked. But by and large, they are more than likely, compensating Arrowhead from an external perspective to make and support Helldivers 2. But when you think about it overall, I'm in the position where I just feel like they're a little bit out of their depths. I mean, let me explain something. Let's actually put this in perspective. Think Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog said that they were going to stop developing factions. Do you know the reason why they stopped developing factions? They actually did mention it. He basically cited a skill issue. On the surface, when you think about the way these live service games are made, they're made with a lot of resources. They're made with a lot of expertise. Studios literally will revamp themselves and build themselves over the years to be able to make, support, and deliver a game of such. Factions had a very strong ground to make a multiplayer game out of, converting a number of those fans from The Last of Us. Perhaps they blew it with Last of Us Part 2 with all the mixture, but I think at the end of the day, people would have still gone into factions. And if you read what they said here, they said the multiplayer team has been in production with this game since we were working on The Last of Us Part 2. They've been working on the online for a long time, crafting an experience we felt was unique and had tremendous potential. As the multiplayer team iterated on their concept for The Last of Us Online during this time, their vision crystallized. The gameplay got more refined and satisfying, and we were enthusiastic about the direction in which we were headed. In ramping up to full production, the massive scope of our ambition became clear. To release and support The Last of Us Online, we'd have to put all our studio resources behind supporting post-launch content for years to come, severely impacting development on single-player games. So we had two paths in front of us: become a solely live service game studio or focus on single-player narrative games that have defined Naughty Dog's heritage. So they, for all their faults, did not fall into that trap. However, PlayStation overall has taken the bait of the live service need in this regard. So it's very interesting to see how they're looking for ways to get into this thing. Bungie, they basically secured the retirement of a lot of their execs by just selling the company to PlayStation, who was basically starting to transform it. But this whole marathon thing is very interesting to watch play out. Because yes, they're not using any of the internal PlayStation studios at the moment anyways that we know to make any of these online titles. But a lot of these external studios that are going to be doing it on new studios or somewhat new, startups or offshoots, they're not necessarily going to carry that identity of PlayStation. And I strongly believe that this where we might see some sort of a whiplash for PlayStation fans who see stuff like this. I mean, think about it. How many hardcore PlayStation fans who like games like Spider-Man, who are anticipating games like X-Men, who like The Last of Us, who like God of War, who like Ghost of Tsushima, how many of them picked up the game Concord? Not a lot. Not a lot at all. I mean, think about it. These, people that play those games that I just mentioned, they bought 15 million copies of God of War Ragnarok just on the PlayStation itself. If these fans really did want these games, they would not have even bothered putting them day one on PC. But because they kind of know their audience in a sense, they're looking for ways to hedge their own bets. And again, they're ignoring the elephant in the room, which is basically, at this point, Xbox. And so all of this is just so weird and so strange. Well, we started out just talking about this particular job position and, how they're looking for somebody who wants to help them, in a sense, open up their understanding from a player perspective in that regard. This is going to be interesting, ladies and gentlemen. But talk to me in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.